Part 25. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 241. Then let's go, have a drink and get to know each other, Yu Tian greeted. Lu Feng stood up helplessly. The more he was afraid, the more he felt, and he was very reluctant to go. From Zhang Xiaoyan's brothers and the things they called and asked for in the past year, he could see it. If Lu Feng told the whole family that he was the chairman of GMA Foodstuffs, and he would not do anything next year, these relatives would definitely follow him to the south, and he would not know how many times they could find him all day long. Zhang Xiaoyan's two eldest brothers kept calling last year, and even her parents called several times, and finally handed over some outsourced business to the two of them. Later, they called Lu Feng and asked Lu Feng to buy more than 10 years of GMA food. All the product packaging of the factory is handed over to them. Lu Feng scolded the two of them on the phone, and warned them that he would divorce Zhang Xiaoyan directly if he got any further, and the two settled down. Are you going or not, dawdling? Hurry up, do you really think you are a person? Yu Rongguang scolded dissatisfiedly. Lu Jinyu said, why are you talking to your brother, Lu Feng? Hurry up. Lu Feng pushed away the chair and squeezed for a long time before walking out from the corner. Yu Tian met and took Yu Rongguang out of the private room to a private room on the second floor. Before entering the room, Yu Tian had already straightened his back and put his hands on his back, like a big boss. Pushing open the door of the room, the person who took the lead said, Old Qian, President Yu is here, the one who helped you find a relationship last time. Standing at the door, Lu Feng saw a man in his 50s sitting inside. He was slightly bald and had peaceful facial features. He looked like a good talker. He was wearing a blue shirt and had a watch on his wrist. It does look a little fancy. Lu Feng glanced at it, and it was indeed a little familiar. This man should have been walking in front of him a few times, but he couldn't remember the specifics. Mr. Qian, hello, hello. Yu Tian walked in and stretched out his hand. His accent also changed from the county's accent to a mix of provincial dialect and ordinary people. Mr. Qian stood up, stretched out his hand and shook it, and said, it's a long-time friendship. You is always a big businessman and can't be compared with those of us who go to work. The others at the dinner table roared, and for a while there was a lot of people in the private room, and the laughter continued. Mr. Qian, what you said, you are now the vice president, one person is more than 10,000 people, and you still have equity. You are backed by a factory as big as GMA Foods. Lives are more nourishing than we are. Yushin boasted. Others agreed. GMA Food is under a lot of pressure. At the end of the year, the top management will change, and I am also afraid. I am afraid that there will be no dividends at the end of the year. You are your own business. Don't sit, come, smoke. Yu Tian scattered a wave of smoke and said, my father-in-law will celebrate his 70th birthday tomorrow. The whole family is eating here today, and we have to pass by in a while. President Qian, which department are you in charge of? What? I'm in charge of procurement. It was originally a separate department. Years ago, there were endless meetings. The chief executive went to the province to hold meetings. Next year, it will become a group, and it will be bigger. These departments must change. Qian Zong snorted as he lit a cigarette. What's the origin of this GMA food? It's so big. I heard someone say it's the son of someone in the province. It was made by the son-in-law. It's all the money of the state. I also heard that it was done by people from the south, from the Xiangjiang side, with big foreign capital. People say that the boss is very young. Has Mr. Gao married a wife? Which Mr. Gao? Gao Jiwei. Mr. Qian breathed out a cigarette with disdain, tapped the table with his hand and said, he can't do it. Don't look at Gao Jiwei's arrogance outside. He is not the boss, he is the general manager, and I heard other bosses say when I was in a meeting that he was the one responsible for the high-level turmoil at the end of the year, and he almost let him pack up and leave. Isn't Gao Jiwei the boss? No, the boss is very young, in his 20s, don't look at his young age, he is ruthless, those people are not good, they are a shareholder system, and now there are a few more shareholders, this boss, people look down on the north this little business, take the money and go to the south to play a big business, Qianzong said with a face full of bullshit. My dear, such a big company doesn't like it? GMA Food can make tens of millions a year, right? 10 million? Let me tell you, at the meeting at the end of the year, the financial manager said that last year's profit was 100 million yuan. There are too many factories all over the country. Qianzong burped as he spoke. There was a brief silence in the private room, and the faces of the people present were full of shock. They knew that GMA Food was very big, but they never dreamed that the annual profit would exceed 100 million yuan. In many provinces, apart from state-owned enterprises, there may not be even a single private enterprise with a profit exceeding 100 million yuan. Yu Tian reacted and looked at President Jian with a more humble smile. A vice president in charge of procurement definitely has the power to kill. Mr. Jian, if you have anything in the future, just tell your brother, no matter if I know some people in the county or city, big things may not help you, small things are absolutely fine. Yu Tian took out from his pocket a pack of Zonghua, handed over and said, Mr. Jian, come here, smoke. President Jian just stuffed the cigarette into his mouth, and the lighter was ready next to him. Mr. Jian, what is the name of the CEO of GMA Food? Why haven't you heard of it? President Jian leaned back on the chair and hesitated. Lu Feng felt a little stunned in his heart. It seemed that he couldn't hide it today. He sighed inwardly. He could only say that he would leave it to Zhang Xiaoyan to deal with it. I really don't know. People don't stay in the factory very much, and I basically don't see them, but I'm sure I know people when I meet them. Mr. Qian knocked on the ash and said with an unfathomable look, I'll tell you guys. It is said that the really powerful people are hidden deep, so I pushed a few managers to jump around outside. Others nodded, not like the gang who opened their own small factories, driving a car every day, carrying a bag, and had to run around by themselves. We're not at the same level anymore. It's too far away. President Jian, I came here today mainly to introduce my son. This is my son. Yu Tian turned his head and shouted, Glory! Come here. Yu Rongguang hurriedly squeezed past, very clever, and bowed slightly. Money is always good. What's your name, Mr. Jian? Uncle, Yu Tian ordered. Hello, uncle. Your son is so old. What do you do now? If you let me arrange the work, I will do it under my hands, and I will be a supervisor in 2 or 3 months. No problem. Mr. Jian, that's not what you mean, this kid is quite promising. Now he's working as a sales team leader in a machine factory in the city. After the new year, the factory has vacated the position of deputy factory manager. If he can do some work, just it's safe. Mr. Qian understood it all at once, pondered for a while and said, I'm really not sure about this. Next year, if there is outsourcing procurement that I can decide, I'll let him do it. You still have money, you can't be the master. Come here, pour a glass of wine, you must toast your uncle. Yu Tian found a small glass of 1 or 2, poured a glass of white wine, and put it in Yu Rongguang's in his hand. He said, say a few words, say a few words. Master, it is my blessing for you Rongguang that I can recognize you as an uncle today. I will definitely be filial to you in the future, and I dare not say that I am like your son, but I will definitely not forget you during the festivals. Your kindness of dripping water is absolutely the springs will report each other, as long as you have a place to call me, just open your mouth, I am not very good at speaking, and everything is in the wine. After Guang finished speaking, he raised his head and drank, and there were people applauding constantly. "Good boy, this child has an absolutely unlimited future," President Qian praised. "It's mainly to see if Mr. Qian can help, then what, let's." Yu Tian returned after a few polite words, and turned around to see Lu Feng leaning on the doorframe of the private room and looking stupidly. Then, I remembered that there was this chairman. Yu Tian didn't want to introduce more, it wouldn't be good if he messed with Qian, but he was afraid that Lu Wanke would go back and mumble, so after thinking about it, he still said, "Mr. Qian, I have a nephew who happens to be working at GMA Foods too. Little leader, you two meet too, and have a drink." Little leader? The people present were wondering, now that 3 or 5 people in charge of them dare to call themselves small leaders, how can Yu Tian keep stuffing people in the game of their group? President Qian is also a little embarrassed. "You should help your son. Why is your nephew here? Isn't it time that a lot of people from your side who came to celebrate their birthdays will come to know each other? People have been standing here all the time." Yu Tian turned his body sideways, wanting Lu Feng to stand forward. Lu Feng thought to himself, just stand at the door and say hello, but he didn't expect to be pulled over by Guang, and whispered, "Why are you so useless? Just pretending to be your chairman? Go forward and stand." Lu Feng stared at him, feeling very unhappy. He stepped forward. Qianzong turned his head to talk to the person next to him, and asked casually, "Which department are you from?" I'm in the production workshop," Lu Feng said casually. A glass of white wine was already poured on the table, and Yu Tian motioned for him to pick it up, waiting for Mr. Qian to finish chatting with others, so that it would be easier to make a toast. "The one on the assembly line? I'm quite familiar with your boss, and we often eat together." Mr. Qian was talking, his ears were still listening to the people next to him, but he didn't even look at Lu Feng. After speaking, he turned his head and picked up a drink and said, "With your uncle's face, you can come to me if you have anything." Mr. Qian raised his eyelids and glanced over Lu Feng's face. The word stopped. The next second he stared at Lu Feng with a hint of doubt, as if he was trying his best to compare with the person in his mind. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 242. Mr. Qian stared at Lu Feng for 4 or 5 seconds, then stood up with a rub, his lips moved slightly, as if he wanted to speak. Qianzong recalled the bragging that he just bragged that GMA Foods strictly prohibited outsourcing to unreliable manufacturers through relationships. Seeing that he wanted to speak, Lu Feng hurriedly picked up his wine glass, leaned forward, and said in a low voice, "Don't say anything that shouldn't be said." Everyone present was staring at President Qian in astonishment, wondering what happened. "Mr. Qian, sit down. It's a big deal." Yu Tian kept waving his hands and said, "He's in the production workshop. If you have any work for him to do, even if you ask him, just treat him as your son." I don't dare." President Qian's face turned pale when he was frightened by Yu Tian's words. "This one is his son, and he wants to be his son. Why don't you dare come, have a drink with Mr. Qian?" Yu Tian looked at Lu Feng and said, "You did it." Lu Feng said with a glass of wine, "Then I've done it. Fill it up for me, too." Mr. Qian frantically found the wine bottle, picked up a bottle and poured it into the glass, unable to pour it in because his hands were shaking. "Mr. Qian, why are your hands shaking? You're old." President Qian poured a full glass and looked at Lu Feng with a smile. He knew very well in his heart that if he could have a drink with Lu Feng, the last time would be President Li and Gao Jiwei. Those top management. Clink a glass today, and it will be able to play for several years after returning to the factory. "Can we hurry up?" Lu Feng urged. "Why are you talking to President Qian?" Yu Tian shouted. It's all right. This young man, at first glance, is extraordinary, very motivated, Not only handsome, but also very witty. Mr. Chien praised, picked up the wine glass, and touched Lu Feng's mouth. The base of the wine glass. Don't you understand the rules at all? Yu Rongguang said. How can you make President Chien's cup lower than yours? President Chien was about to cry, and he had already scolded Yu Tian and his son for the 18th generation, and said, it doesn't matter, young people don't pay so much attention. You still have to respect President Chien. Lu Feng lowered the glass a little. Chien always dare not let his glass be too low. He hurriedly put it down a bit, and everyone present found that there was something wrong with Chien's own, who seemed to be very nervous facing this young man. Mr. Chien, are you all right? Did you drink too much? Drink up. You sit down. It's okay. Mr. Chien touched the cup and said, you can do what you want, I'll do it. Lu Feng picked up the wine glass and drank half of it, but President Chien drank it all in one go. Yu Tian saw that Lu Feng did not understand the rules of the wine table, so he sneered and said, President Chien, let's go first. Ah, bump into one another day and have a good drink. Lu Feng turned his head and left without saying a word. I'll send it off, Mr. Chien said and walked out. He didn't know what Lu Feng meant. Obviously, Yu Tian didn't know his identity at all, otherwise he wouldn't ask him. No, Mr. Chien, you are too polite. When he got out of the box, Mr. Chien stared at Lu Feng, and he hoped that Lu Feng would praise him, and he might be able to go to the headquarters next year. But Lu Feng stood there like a piece of wood, and said politely. Lu Feng turned around and left. On the way back to the private room, Yu Tian was in a good mood, and it seemed that the matter was done. What else did Lu Feng say about the chairman? His dad really dared to brag about this. He was afraid that someone would break his leg when he went out, Yu Rongguang said disdainfully. I don't understand the rules at all. Yu Tian thought about it and said, why do I feel that President Chien is very afraid of him in front of him, and seems very cautious? I can see it too. I laughed very fake in front of him, and the squeezed smile seemed to please. Yu Rongguang thought about it and said, Dad, do you think this kid has a backing in GMA Food? Like some factories, they form gangs. How is that possible? It's forbidden in there, don't think about it, he probably drinks too much money, let's go in. In the private room, the family dinner had come to an end, and Lu Jinyu asked, how is it? Mr. Chien is a good person. Even though he is a vice president, he is also quite respectable in front of my dad. Next year, there is no problem with my position as deputy director. Yu Rongguang's face was full of arrogance. My son is awesome. It's mainly because his father is amazing, Yu Tian boasted. Seeing that they were having a good conversation, Lu Wanke rushed to Lu Feng and asked, did you mention that you are also working at GMA Food? I mentioned it, Lu Feng said. Yushin, let me tell you, maybe they agreed to save my son's face. Lu Wanke had a smile on his face, feeling that he had found face. He, you say yes, I still want to say something to Lu Feng, go out to toast and be smart, don't let people beat you someday. Yu Rongguang snorted coldly. What's the matter? Lu Jinyu asked. Toast Mr. Chien, and he drank half of it, and the glass is still higher than others, so why don't you just go out and hang out? Mr. Chien is not an outsider. They gave me face, and it's all gone, Yu Tian said in a rounded tone. This meal, Lu Wanke wasn't very happy. Tomorrow is the birthday banquet. Tonight, the two old people have to live in the building. Lu Feng's family of 3 opened a room in the hotel. In the evening, when Lu Feng was lying on the bed and looking at the ceiling, Zhang Xiaoyan walked in and said, Dad, I just want to save face, why don't you always give it? Your parents, your brother, and your relatives, if you are willing to be busy with these things next year, I don't care. I will be very busy after the new year. You're always busy. Zhang Xiaoyan sat on the bed and turned her face to look at Lu Feng. She could sense that Lu Feng didn't seem to have much affection for this family, and he didn't have much attachment to his parents. It was more like a responsibility. Our family went to the south. What about your parents? They have 600,000 yuan. Do you know how much 600,000 yuan is? They can open a factory with an area of 100 acres. Maybe they're right, you've changed, like a different person. Lu Feng lay on the bed for a moment, and stretched out his arms to wrap his arms around her waist. Following Zhang Xiaoyan's exclamation, he hugged her and asked, "Where have I changed? It feels like you don't want anything but work right now. Don't think about anything?" "Then guess what I'm thinking about right now," Lu Feng asked with a smile. Zhang Xiaoyan was half pressed on Lu Feng. She felt something a little hard, her pretty face flushed bright red. She pinched Lu Feng with her hand and said, "What time is it? What's the matter with the time?" "I don't want anything you said. I'll let you know what I want now. It's in a hotel." Lu Feng didn't care so much, he rolled over and pressed her under him. Early the next morning, Zhang Xiaoyan was lying on the bed and thinking. Lu Feng opened his eyes in a daze and asked, "What is it?" "The probability of conception that I just learned recently is a bit higher in the past 2 days." Lu Feng got up and leaned on the bed, looking at her helplessly, and said, "What time is it?" "A lot of relatives are coming in the morning." "Do you cry with her grandma?" "It's only after 7 o'clock, and it's not even 8 o'clock." Zhang Xiaoyan turned sideways, staring at Lu Feng with piercing eyes. "Time to wake up." "Don't get up." Zhang Xiaoyan put on Lu Feng's ear softly and hummed softly, "It stands to reason that the chances are the highest today, so let's expand the chances. It's time to get up. Let's not say that my body can't bear it anymore. It's almost 8 o'clock. You can come after 9 or 10." Zhang Xiaoyan was lying on Lu Feng's body like a lazy kitten. At 10:30 in the morning, many relatives had come to the hotel, and they were chatting with each other. Many people went to Lu Bingwen to say a few words. Some even bought gifts for the old man, all of which were gadgets. Lu Wanke greeted the guests, looked around and didn't see Lu Feng coming. He was a little unhappy. It was almost 11 o'clock when Lu Feng's car stopped downstairs. When he got out of the car, Zhang Xiaoyan put his arm around him and said, "It's a little late. I don't know how much I cried or not." "You only want the small, don't care about the big one, and you have to toss the old one to death," Lu Feng muttered. "What are you talking about?" Zhang Xiaoyan looked embarrassed, glanced around, and found that no one was relieved. "Don't talk nonsense, shame. Today's weather is not too cold. When I went upstairs, I met a few distant relatives. After a long time, I complied politely." Lu Feng could only follow their words and say a few words. Lu Wanke hurried over and said, "Why did you come here? What time is it?" "We came early, and the restaurant didn't open." Lu Feng looked at him and asked, "Dad, it's nothing to do with me. You must not wish your grandfather a birthday? Yao Yao is here, hurry up and say a few words, go." Lu Wanke patted Lu Feng on the shoulder and told him to go. This is the rule for birthday celebrations. Lu Feng nodded and walked towards the inside. The table where Lu Bingwen was sitting was magnificently arranged on the back wall, with birthday peaches and old birthday stars. How festive! There were several young people about the same age as Lu Feng standing beside them. One of them was a girl in her 20s, with fair skin and a somewhat beautiful appearance. It was Yao Yao, the daughter of the uncle's family, and Yu Rongguang was also standing beside them. Everyone looked at Yao Yao and kept saying congratulations. Lu Feng took Zhang Xiaoyan and stepped forward and said, "I wish my grandparents a long life, a happy old age, and a happy life in 2020. "Okay," Lu Bingwen nodded in agreement, set his eyes on Zhang Xiaoyan, and asked, "Did Lu Feng's wife have a son and a half-daughter?" When Lu Feng saw the smile on Zhang Xiaoyan's face, it was instantly frozen. For her, this sentence was a disaster. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 243. Lu Feng felt the soft and boneless hand tightly pinching himself at the moment, and said, "Grandpa, we have a daughter. Isn't that child raised? How many years have you been married?" Lu Bingwen frowned slightly, looking at Lu Wankei with dissatisfaction. Although the country now advocates family planning, the older generation still believes that the right way is to have a great family and a prosperous population. Lu Wankei sat not far away and didn't speak. He was also muttering in his heart about this matter, but his wife wouldn't let him say anything. But Lu Wankei felt that his son was also a figure now. With his social status and financial resources, there was no shortage of women. "Your sister has only had a child half a year after she got married. For a woman, having a child is the most important thing." Lu Bingwen stiffened and said, "Lu Feng, how much money you have is useless, you have to have a queen, you know? Don't say that the girl is adopted, even if it is biological." Lu Feng could feel that Zhang Xiaoyan beside him was about to cry, and hurriedly said, "This is our business. Grandpa celebrates his birthday today, and it's good to have a happy birthday. As for when we want to have a child, we naturally have a plan." "What are you talking about? What's your attitude?" Yurong Guang stared at Lu Feng with an angry expression and shouted, "Grandpa cares about you, why? Can't care about you? After earning a few dollars, you feel like the boss." "I think it's my family's business," Lu Feng said. "What is your family?" Lu Bingwen was surprisingly angry, and Lu Feng seemed to be disrespectful to him, and scolded, "You belong to this family too, where did you come from? Your own family? I think you want to turn the sky. Let me tell you, Lu Feng, don't think that if you make a name for yourself outside, there is no big or small at home. In this family, Grandpa is always the head of the family, and your father doesn't dare to talk about his own family. After all, what do you want to do?" Yurong Guang stared at Lu Feng aggressively and said, "Isn't this for your own good?" Lu Feng couldn't take it any longer. In his heart, no one in this world could directly interfere in his own affairs. His three views were different from everyone present. However, now it is very normal for a big family to control a small family, and there is a feeling of top-down control. "I still say that, it's our business. Since you are celebrating your birthday, just sit there and be a birthday star, don't say anything you shouldn't say, you are enjoying your old age now, be kind, let's be filial, everyone is better off," Lu Feng said frankly. Zhang Xiaoyan desperately pulled Lu Feng. "Let him say a few words less, this situation contradicts the elders today, and it will only make outsiders see jokes." When Lu Feng said this, the whole audience was shocked. Lu Bingwen stared at Lu Feng with wide eyes, his face flushed, and he pointed at Lu Feng and reprimanded, "It's the other way around, but if you make some money, don't take me seriously, I still can't control you." "Lu Feng, you are earning some money, this family can't let you go," the uncle shouted. "Your grandfather is also for your own good, can't tell you?" "Don't tell you, even if your father is in front of him, you have to be obedient. You are rebellious, so hurry up and apologize to your grandfather. I've heard people say that the old Lu family married this daughter-in-law who can't lay eggs. Lu Wankei is such an only child, I'm afraid this one will be the last." The scene was extremely noisy, and everyone was chatting, some watching the excitement, some scolding Lu Feng. The scene was very chaotic for a while, and Lu Wankei's face turned green when he stood there. Lu Feng felt that he and the old man had two different worldviews, and if the trouble continued, he would be the same duck. If Lu Bingwen died on the spot, these people could kill him. "It's time for dinner, we'll talk about this later." After Lu Feng finished speaking, he dragged Zhang Xiaoyan to the table, and all eyes were on him. Lu Feng sat down and found that Zhang Xiaoyan lowered her head and didn't speak. She looked down to see that tears were raining down, and reached out to wipe her tears and said, "Auntie, why are you crying again? What a big deal. Why don't you go back to the city for the new year?" "No," Zhang Xiaoyan grabbed Lu Feng's arm and said stubbornly, "it's even more fun to leave." Lu Feng doesn't understand the stubbornness of today's people towards having a son, nor does he understand the pain of infertility. Under the pressure of this social attribute, it is enough to kill a person. Although the planned economy has been abolished in most parts of the country, the top-down family management of many years ago has still been retained. It was not until more than 10 years later that developed urbanization and the impact of the internet on young people did not get out of this situation completely. This is also the reason why the post-90s generation is labeled as a rebellious and beat generation. A few minutes later, the birthday celebrations returned to normal. People walked over to say a few words of blessing to Lu Bingwen. Those who had gifts were basically given empty-handed. Because Lu Wanke didn't want gifts, everyone was happy to eat and drink. The uncle stepped forward to comfort Lu Bingwen. Yao Yao was also by his side. Lu Bingwen's face became better. He turned his head and asked, "Why isn't Yao Yao's son-in-law coming?" "Grandpa, he is the chairman of the board. He is very busy. He said that he heard that you like to drink tea. He asked someone to go to the place of origin to buy good tea as a birthday gift." "Dad, don't look at other people's money, but filial piety. I don't know how much better than some bastards," the uncle said with a smile. "Some people in our family are toads at the bottom of the well. A little fortune will reveal itself." Lu Bingwen snorted coldly. "I saw when Wanke was a child that there is no hope for this line. Grandpa, he just earns some money and sets up at home. When Han Kian comes, he will know what a rich man is." Yao Yao's face was full of smiles, and the uncle stood by the side with a very proud face. Yu Rongguan was not very happy, but he didn't say anything. He also wanted to see how holy the son-in-law was. Almost all the people at the scene were already seated. The waiter began to serve cold dishes. A man in his 30s walked in. He was 1.8 meters tall and looked handsome. As soon as he walked in, he instantly attracted the attention of many people. He was dressed in a suit and leather shoes, with outstanding temperament, with a big back and a gift box in his hand. He didn't look like an ordinary person. This person walked gracefully in front of Lu Bingwen. Even if she is married, Yao Yao is very satisfied with her husband Cheng Longkuai, with a shy look in her eyes. Not to mention a woman like Yao Yao, even Lu Feng took a second look. Every move of this person revealed a handsome and unrestrained look, giving him the image of an inherently domineering president, always feeling like a person. Lu Feng pondered for a while, and suddenly remembered, this person looks like Chiao Anfan, with such a fake body on his body. "Grandpa, do you still remember me? I'm Han Kian. I wish you good luck and longevity. This is the tea I bought for you. This is ancient tree tea. Such a piece of tea cake costs tens of thousands of dollars." Han Kian put the gift box on the table. Many people are paying attention to this, and it is a little silly to hear that a piece of tea is tens of thousands of dollars. Is there such an expensive thing? What ancient tea tree? So expensive? Is it too expensive? Yushin, do you really think there is such an expensive thing? Yu Tian was a little embarrassed. He had heard of ancient tree tea or something. Generally, he could get 1 or 200 yuan as a gift, but it was especially expensive. He knew about 1,000 yuan, but he had never heard of it. Same price as gold. I haven't seen it before. Yu Tian looked at the packaging box and was also curious. Uncle, there are many expensive things in the world. It's just that you have money and no money. It's normal that you haven't seen it before. After all, Han Kian is the chairman of the board, and he does big business. Yao Yao said to Lu Bingwen, "Grandpa, Are you satisfied with such a grandson-in-law? Satisfied, Lu Bingwen's eyes were about to die, and he asked, how much can you earn this year? Not much, just tens of millions, Han Kaiang said casually. Lu Feng didn't care about comforting Zhang Xiaoyan. He raised his head and looked at Han Kaiang. Lu Feng shouldn't be ignorant of this guy who is a private boss worth tens of millions. Tens of millions. Several people sitting at the tables near Lu Bingwen were shocked when they heard this astronomical figure. They stood up and said they wanted to get to know the chairman well. For a while, all kinds of relatives greeted the uncle again. The uncle's face was full of scolding, and Lu Wanke, who was on the side, looked very upset. Everyone sit down, I'll toast one by one in a while. Sit down, the uncle ordered. The hot dishes were served, and Lu Feng didn't provoke much. He ate with his head down, and made the day go by. The rest was the family closed their doors for the new year. Not to die, the uncle arranged Yao Yao and Han Kaiang beside Lu Feng. Yao Yao sat down, glanced at Lu Feng, saw that Zhang Xiaoyan's eyes were red, and said, "Oh, why is my brother and sister crying?" "I didn't cry, I just ate spicy food." Lu Feng glanced at her sideways, and said, "Let's eat numbly." "Lu Feng, what are you talking about? Look at you and don't say hello to your brother-in-law. It's not too rude, right?" Yao Yao sat back slightly and said, "I'll give it to you. Let me introduce, this is Lu Feng, the younger brother of my family, who is working in the city and earns a lot." Lu Feng reached out and shook hands with Han Kaiang. "Hello, hello. If it doesn't go well, you can go to your brother-in-law's company to do it. He will definitely not treat you badly," Yao Yao asked. "No need. Your brother-in-law is his own business, his family is rich, and he is the only child. He is very kind to others. Which factory do you work in? Maybe your brother-in-law knows your boss. Let me tell you, there are only so many people in the upper class. Everyone, I know each other. Let me say hi to you. I will be a good friend in the factory in the future." Yao Yao looked at Lu Feng with a smile on her face. "I work at GMA Foods. Do you know the boss of GMA Food?" Yao Yao turned her head and asked. "Dear, how can I know such a small factory owner? I work in finance, and this kind of boss begs me every day." "I don't know how much, don't worry," Han Kaiang said to Lu Feng. "After the new year I'll call and ask them to promote you to general manager." Lu Feng almost slammed out while eating, and Gao Jiwei probably never dreamed that he was dismissed by someone else. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 244. Lu Feng coughed twice. In Yao Yao's eyes, he thought that Lu Feng was frightened, and said with a chuckle, "It's a trivial matter for your brother-in-law. He often goes abroad." Lu Feng stared at the brother-in-law named Han Kaiang, suspecting that he was a liar, but if he knew a little about the operation of the business, he wouldn't say such arrogant words. "Promoting me to be the general manager," Lu Feng looked at him and asked, "Are you sure?" "Sprinkle water," Han Kaiang said. "Cantonese, people travel south and north, they learn a lot, and they can sing Cantonese songs." "Your brother-in-law sings very well," Yao Yao said with a condescending expression. "Why don't you drive to the city to sing karaoke in the afternoon?" Don't, Lu Feng hurriedly refused, and everyone in the city's big hotels and dance halls knew him. Others at the table inquired about the son-in-law's origin. Yao Yao introduced it to others. Lu Feng took the opportunity to sit upright and began to eat, and the food was ready. Firecracker. After eating this meal, send it back to each home and it's over. For these people, all Lu Feng can do is to do his best with benevolence and righteousness, and give enough money to his family to support the two elders. So I didn't break Han Kaiang. The most common thing these days are liars, so it's normal for my family to be deceived. After drinking 3 dishes and 5 flavors, Yu Tian also came over to greet him. He stood at the table with a wine glass, his face was slightly red, and he patted Han Kaiang on the shoulder and said, "Yao Yao, when I got married, my uncle saw this, the kid will definitely treat you well, Mr. Han is almost a perfect person, not only handsome but also capable." Uncle praised me. Here, I mainly have to rely on my uncle. Han Kaiang stood up and said. Sit and sit. I heard just now that you want to promote Lu Feng to the general manager of GMA Foodstuffs, Yu Tian asked. Yes, I'll go back and ask if the company under my name has any dealings with GMA Foods, and if so, it's just a matter of saying hello, Han Kaiang said very easily. Brother-in-law, can I also be the general manager or something? I will be the deputy director of the fourth factory in our county after the new year. Yu Rongguang's eyes lit up, and he pulled a cigarette from his arms excitedly. Brother-in-law, you smoke. This is my son, Rongguang, he had something to delay when you got married, Yu Tian introduced. Hello. Let's drink one. Yu Tian glanced at everyone present, raised his glass, and said, everyone toast, let's do each one. One is to wish our old man more and more health and longevity, and the other is to wish Yao Yao and his wife happiness and harmony. The people at the table stood up one after another, so Lu Feng had to stand up and pour a little drink, followed the crowd to touch the glass, and then sat down again, looked at Zhang Xiaoyan and said, why don't you bring Duo back first? Let's go to the hotel, and tomorrow the second old man will send it back to the village. Forget it, wait a while. Yu Rongguang stood there, handing out cigarettes and igniting them, and said in a low voice, brother-in-law, it's not appropriate for you to have Lu Feng be the general manager of GMA Foods. Where is it inappropriate? This person has no respect, you don't know, I almost made my grandfather mad just now, and only made a few money, and it's like this, I don't know how to be grateful, arrogant, and domineering. Yes, you just came to this house, you can ask Yao Yao. Han Kaiang was held by the father and son in harmony, and he was a little flirtatious. In addition, he was not good at drinking white wine, and he was a little fluttering after 2 glasses. It's him, earning some money outside, and pretending to be coercive in front of you, right? Han Kaiang's fingers were about to poke Lu Feng's nose, and he asked Yao Yao. Lu Feng looked at the fingers in front of him, and his anger rose up. He was letting go again and again at noon. He originally wanted to be a low-key man, but there were still people pointing at him and saying that he was pretending to be a force. Yao Yao obviously didn't care about Lu Feng's emotions at all, and now she was the most powerful being in the family, even Yu Tian had to come over and say something nice to please. I also don't think it's suitable. Rongguang is very self-motivated. Please take your hand away, Lu Feng stared at Han Kaiang and said, his voice full of displeasure. Why are you yelling at me? A person like you deserves to be hit with 5 thunders. I tell you, your future is gone, Han Kaiang said with a bit of drunkenness. You're drinking some wine, can't you tell the difference between east, west, north and west? Lu Feng asked. Lu Feng, why are you talking to your brother-in-law? I tell you, don't be foolish here, this is a big man. If people are not happy, you won't be able to eat and walk away, Yu Rongguang scolded sharply. Everyone at this table knows that the Yushin family is very powerful. Seeing that even Yushin is so afraid of others, this new son-in-law is definitely a powerful person. Some elders look at Lu Feng with a bad expression. Why is your child so troubled? I don't know how bad you are, how much money you have earned in total, and this place can't let you go. That's right, since I sat down and kept my head down to eat, a starving ghost was reincarnated. I don't understand the rules at all. A child cried and scolded, you even ate the last chicken leg, woo woo. Lu Feng was pointed at by thousands of people for a moment, his face was extremely ugly, he picked up the napkin on the table and wiped his mouth, looked at Han Kaiang and smiled and said, I don't want to pay attention to you, If you pretend to be forceful, just pretend to be forceful. What are you doing to me? Who pretended? Han Kaiyan was a little crazy for a moment, and said solemnly, I tell you, don't be crazy in front of me. Believe it or not, if I call you, you have to kneel on the ground and beg me. Lu Feng frowned, looking at him like a fool, full of question marks. Do you know what my house is doing? Chatting with me here, Han Kaiyan shouted loudly. Lu Feng shook his head. The people at the scene had basically finished eating, and when they heard the voices from here, they all raised their heads and looked over, muttering what happened again. I tell you, I can make you lose everything you have with a phone call. Those bosses in your eyes may not be as good as a dog in front of me. Those rich people you said you have seen are beggars in my eyes. Understand? Han Kaiyan was a little hysterical. Listening to what he said, Lu Feng almost laughed, looked at him and asked, It's been 3 years. According to what you said, should a bunch of people rush in next and tell you Master Han, all the Lu family? Take control, wait for your release. Lu Feng, you still have a smile on your face? Do you know who you offended? Yu Tian shouted, patting the table. Who did I offend? Lu Feng looked at Han Kaiyan and asked, Which company did you say? What did you do? My family is Hong Kong Financial Corporation. Then do you know Morgan Stanley? And Goldman Sachs, Tiger Fund, etc. What does this have to do with me? Then your financial company in Xiangjiang has a relationship with me? I don't want to have the same knowledge as you. You are stomping your nose and face. Lu Feng stood up and patted the table. You made me kneel without explaining why you made a phone call today. I'm begging you on the ground, and I'm not finished with you. My family's financial company holds a number of domestic groups. Which are the multiple groups? What kind of equity? Dry shares? Stocks? How much voting rights are on the board of directors, and do you have the right to be promoted to senior management? Lu Feng interrupted and asked. I tell you, I made a phone call, and the boss of GMA Foods you were in was frightened. It's better to be acquainted, don't ask so many details, those are all commercial secrets. Lu Feng was amused by the embarrassed look on his face. He sat down and lit a cigarette. Call, Rongguang, you don't hang around with your big brother every day, and talk to anyone about tens of thousands of dollars every day. Well, it's time to use it now. I made a phone call and turned the sky over. He doesn't care about anyone now, teach him a lesson, Yao Yao said meanly. The relatives around began to persuade them. They were all family members, and they finally gathered together to have a meal. Why was it so stiff? If others don't persuade him, Han Kaiyan may not dare to call him. The more he persuades him, the higher he gets. He grabbed the big brother and clicked it a few times. He made a phone call and said to the big brother, I'm Mr. Han, listen carefully. Now, I want you to completely destroy a person named Lu Feng in a company called GMA Foods within 24 hours. After saying that, he hung up the phone with a cold face. Lu Feng couldn't help laughing out loud. This scene was even more funny than a comedy. He took a puff of his cigarette and said, Brother, you're a real treasure. Since you're trying to be unhappy, I'll chat with you for a while. You said your family opened a financial company in Xiangjiang. Yes, you know you're afraid. Then you should have the most basic and simple understanding of finance. That's nature, my industry, can I not know? Okay, may I ask which one of your company's main focus is on venture capital, angel investment, financing, listing, bonds, and currency trading? Lu Feng asked with a smile. Han Kaiyan was stunned, standing behind him with a cold sweat, and turned back to the gods. Venture capital. Then your company's risk control team must be very powerful. I would like to know which part of your investment is, what is the risk rate, what is the rate of return, and, brother, let me tell you one thing, mainly there are few venture capital financial companies in the world, and most of them are doing bonds, financing, and helping companies go public, Lu Feng said calmly. Sweat has already appeared on Han Kayang's forehead. Anyone who has read the financial report for 2 days will not look like him. I don't usually take care of business affairs. It's not about the business. Don't make another phone call when you go out in the future, and let people kneel. Unless it's a direct debtor, who else will kneel for you? Lu Feng knocked the cigarette ashes and said, I just want to have a quiet meal. You say you have nothing to do, so what would you pretend to be in front of me? High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 245. Yu Tian is an old man. Although he has never been to Xiangjiang and doesn't know anything about finance, his intuition tells him that Han Kayang is an embroidered pillow who doesn't understand anything. Looking suspiciously at Han Kayang, Yu Tian asked, "Your family is in finance, so you don't understand what people say." "Didn't I say it all? I rarely care about my company's affairs." Han Kayang lowered his head and dared not look at anyone present. "Then what are you doing here? What business are you investing in?" Lu Feng asked casually, sneering in his heart when he saw him like this. Back then, when he went to the grain bureau to deceive people, he didn't look like this. After all, the heat was not enough. "It's just investing in that GMA food," Han Kayang said as if he had grabbed a life-saving straw. "My dad is going to invest in a mainland company, let me supervise it." "Really? I've never heard that GMA Foods has an investment company from Hong Kong. Now there are 3 companies, but they are all state-owned enterprises, banks, and management." Lu Feng stared at he sneered at him and said, "Are you sure you know what you are talking about now?" Yu Tian asked Yao Yao, "Yao Yao, tell the truth, has he paid for it for so long? Did he take you to Xiangjiang?" Yao Yao's face became embarrassed. So many people were watching at the scene. She wanted to lie for face, but the child in her belly was 5 or 6 months old, and she had been suspicious. Many times she wanted to live in the Xiangjiang mansion, he said. For a moment, see his parents, but they were all pushed away. Yao Yao raised her head to look at the perfect man in her mind, and said, "Han Kayang, are you from Xiangjiang?" "Yes, I speak Cantonese so well, but there is something wrong with my family," Han Kayang said with an embarrassed expression. "The company is not that big, and there are some problems with the operation. A sum of money has been frozen by the bank, and I need a little more. Turn the money around." The people present watched the play one after another, and the uncle's face was gloomy and uncertain. Although this result was not easy to accept, it was acceptable. As long as there was money to turn around, it would naturally skyrocket. "Take out your passport and let me take a look." "And why is the bank freezing your account?" Lu Feng asked. "It's because the account is at risk and it was frozen urgently. You need to put $10,000 in it to unfreeze it." Han Kayang looked at Lu Feng and said impatiently, "You don't understand this. There is a risk in the account. Then take the money out and change the account, my friend, and I will give you a little knowledge. The emergency freezing of the account can only be because of money laundering, illegal funds, forced execution of debts, and application for property preservation by enterprises. The situation," Lu Feng looked at him and said with a smile. "What are you doing?" Han Kayang frowned into a Sichuan character. Watch Lu Feng grit his teeth. "Pipeline team leader," Lu Feng said, squeezing out the cigarette butt in the ashtray. "Actually, some things are very simple. Didn't he give Grandpa a piece of tea? Open it and let us see it." Lu Bingwen sat at the table next to him and listened all the time, and hurriedly took out the tea beside him, so he could tell if it was true or not. In fact, an old Jianghu like Yu Tian has already guessed in his heart that he is inseparable, and Han Kayang's face flashed a trace of panic, and said, "My stomach is not feeling well, go to the toilet first." "Why are you going?" Yu Tian stepped forward, blocking his way, and said, "It's not too late, right? Tea is something that ordinary people can't see with 1,000 yuan and 2 or 3,000 yuan, but a fool can see it with a few yuan and tens of thousands of dollars. Opening it and taking a look, it was an ordinary piece of tea cake that couldn't be more ordinary. Lu Bingwen's face turned green, and he hurriedly closed the box. With so many relatives around, he couldn't afford to lose his face. At this time, Han Kaiyan has nothing to say. When he goes out to the rivers and lakes, there is a possibility of overturning at any time. This is the first time that his method has overturned, and in this small remote northern county, there are people who really care about Xiangjiang and finance. Know both things. Yu Tian refused to let go. Han Kaiyan sat down, but he was calm. Yao Yao was pregnant with a child. What could this family do to him? Han Kaiyan stared at Lu Feng for a while, and intuitively told him that this person was definitely not an ordinary person. Who the hell are you? Let's talk about who you are first. Lu Feng was too lazy to talk to him. People like him should not be too much now. They cheat money and sex. Many girls are pregnant with children, and their family's money is used for various purposes. Lied away with an excuse, and then disappeared without a trace. Yao Yao was dumbfounded when she sat there. Although she had doubts for a while, she still couldn't accept the fact when she was in front of her. She always felt that she had married a prince. Not only does the family have a mansion, but also a manor abroad. The entrance and exit are luxury cars and even helicopters. Yao Yao also secretly rejoiced because of an unexpected pregnancy. This time, he couldn't run away. The uncle's face turned green when he stood there, and he could see that the whole person was struck by lightning. It was already after 1 o'clock noon, and most of the people were leaving, and only this table was sitting here. Boy, let me tell you, whether it's in the county or the city, I have people. Where are you? I'll make a few phone calls to find out. You'd better say it yourself, or I will break your leg. Yu Tian stared at Han Kaiyan and threatened. Han Kaiyan was also calm, and directly told his original name and where he was from. Before the marriage, Yao Yao took all the money she earned and was taken away by him in various names. All the money was used by him to buy clothes, and there was not a cent left. He said as if a dead pig was not afraid of boiling water, if you want to fight, feel free to fight. I am also the father of the child now, and I have received my marriage certificate. I am a scumbag, and I just think about this day when I come out. Yao Yao had already cried to tears. Everything she longed for was empty. Yu Tian wanted to pull him out and beat him, but was stopped by Yao Yao. Then can you fix it? Yao Yao choked up. Of course, with you and children, I will definitely get better. A smile appeared on Han Kaiyan's face, which was very warm. That's good, I'm willing to believe you. Yao Yao wiped her tears and said. Zhang Xiaoyan looked at the scene in front of her, and felt so familiar. Her eyes stayed on Lu Feng for a few seconds. How similar he was to Han Kaiyan now. Zhang Xiaoyan also knew that he couldn't change it, but now that so many people were surrounding him, he was afraid of being beaten, and Yao Yao was already caught in it. It was originally a family affair, and others were not easy to interfere. The uncle walked over with a dark face and said, the banquet is over, it's time to go back, let's go. Han Kaiyan stood up and tidied up his suit, with a confident smile on his face again, looking a little more successful than successful people. Before leaving, his eyes stopped on Lu Feng for a while, secretly thinking in his heart that he must inquire about this person when he goes back. Holding Yao Yao's hand, showing extra intimacy, he walked downstairs. Yu Tian sighed, looking a little helpless, and asked Lu Feng, you know a lot about finance. Just read some newspapers. Is this in the newspaper? He knows a hammer. Dad, let's go back. Everyone in this family is a liar, except for scoundrels. Yu Rongguang pulled Yu Tian away with a look of disgust. Lu Feng took a long sigh of relief while sitting in his seat. The meal was finished. He stood up and said, go back. Dad said let me go home and go back to the hotel after dinner in the evening, Zhang Xiaoyan whispered. Ro. Packing some items back from the dinner table, Zhang Xiaoyan also began to help. Lu Feng could feel that Zhang Xiaoyan and Lu Wanke were starting to get estranged, not like the days when they just returned home, but as comfortable as they were in their own home. Zhang Xiaoyan had an indescribable emotion for the child in her heart, but today's words from Lu Bingwen completely detonated this emotion and worry. Although Lu Wanke and his wife didn't say anything, not speaking is the biggest statement. Her psychological pressure is not something Lu Feng can understand. In the afternoon, the uncle's family returned home. The atmosphere at home was indescribably dull, and all the beautiful illusions about the future were shattered. I wanted to show it off, but I didn't expect such a result. The uncle was sitting on a slightly worn wooden chair smoking a cigarette, raised his head and said solemnly, I tell you, no matter what kind of immortal you are, don't think that my Lu family is easy to provoke, and you will get me back the money you took, or I'll humming kill you, you know. Don't worry, I've been washing my hands in a golden basin since today. Ever since I met Yao Yao, I've always felt sorry for her in conscience. Han Kaiang started to cry, knelt on the ground and hugged Yao Yao's thigh. Wife, I'm sorry for you and the children. Yao Yao burst into tears, and hurriedly pulled him up and said, it's all right, it's all over, get up quickly, there is gold under the man's knees, and he will be fine in the future. Han Kaiang swore all kinds of poisonous vows like Yao Yao promised to change his past, and said, I still have more than 1,000 yuan in the hands of another friend. I will go to him and ask for it later. Stop. The uncle was very vigilant, you follow him. Han Kaiang nodded and agreed. Just after walking out of the alley for a long time, he stopped to look at Yao Yao and said, the weather is so cold, you follow me to suffer, I really can't bear it, go back, I will be back in a while, let go 10,000 hearts, even if I have a heartless heart, can I still not have children? Yao Yao thought for a while and nodded and agreed, then come back early. Han Kaiang smiled, reached out and touched her face and agreed, and watched Yao Yao go back. Han Kaiang turned his head and ran away, with a triumphant smile on his face, and said, when you come out, you have to pay attention to not sticking to your body. The next one. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 246. When the uncle saw Yao Yao coming back alone, he hurriedly asked her, Yao Yao was telling the truth, and stomped the uncle angrily. In the city, the Monopoly ballroom, although the sky has just darkened, it is already lively here. These few days are when there are many people, and all kinds of big bosses and little ladies have been idle. Today, Brother Go didn't play mahjong on the second floor. He was sitting in a booth and talking to a few gangsters from other places next to him about how awesome he was. She has an outstanding appearance and is favored by the little girls who accompany the wine next to her. He and Brother Go can be considered acquaintances. Anyway, no matter what kind of underworld or gray, there are only so many people, and everyone is familiar. In this land, if there is anything looking for me, I will arrange it for you clearly. You ask him, Lao Han, the dream lover of thousands of girls in the city. Brother Go patted Han Kaiang and said, in our city, go out to mention my dog brother, everyone else has to take a detour, and if you meet someone who is timid, you have to kneel down and kowtow to you. Brother dog is awesome. To the dog brother. Drinking wine, Brother Go turned his head to look at Han Kaiang and said, don't you have a bitch on hand recently? Why did you suddenly come out? I don't have much money, and my belly is getting bigger. I was asked today. Han Kaiang was stunned and said, Brother Go, do you know a guy named Lu Feng? I don't think that kid can be anonymous. Food to work. Game Foods? Lu Feng? A person popped out of Brother Go's mind. The whole person was startled, looked at Han Kaiang and said, "What is he doing? What kind of workshop is it?" "Brother, I have seen everyone when I traveled south and north. That person is definitely not simple." His eyes, temperament, and conversation, Han Kaiang recalled the scenes at noon. Brother Go heard that he was relieved from the workshop, shook his head and said, "I'm not very familiar with it, but I know a GMA Foods named Lu Feng, but it's impossible for you to come into contact with others with your identity. It's about 1.78 meters, with slightly longer hair, wearing a suit." Brother Go listened to what he said, and took out a photo cropped from a newspaper from his pocket. He took it and said, "Is it this one? I don't know it if it's not this one." "That's right, it's him." A few minutes later, Han Kaiang rolled and crawled back home, and just ran downstairs and returned, and said to Brother Go, "Lend me $1,500. "Why?" "Just because I am his brother-in-law now," Han Kaiang gasped. Hum, you hummed Mr. Lu's sister's head." Brother Go looked shocked. "I want to wash my hands in a golden basin and go home to coax the child. Can you borrow this money?" Without a word, Brother Go took out 2,000 yuan and threw it on the table. In the afternoon, Lu Feng and the others were at home. Although Lu Wanke and his wife didn't say anything, sometimes they still leaned on their children. Throughout the afternoon, Zhang Xiaoyan was in a bad mood. After dinner, Lu Feng proposed to go back to the hotel to rest. The bright moonlight, above the sky, the goose feather-like university floats down, giving people an indescribable beauty. The surroundings are very quiet, only occasionally a few barks are heard in the distance. This kind of tranquility makes people feel very comfortable. It is not far from the hotel. It takes about 20 minutes to walk. It's snowing, it's not safe to drive. Go back. Zhang Xiaoyan wears a woolen hat on her head, with a small pink ball on the back. Her nose is cold and reddish, and her little face is indescribably good-looking. Lu Feng stared at her for a moment, then nodded and said, "You look good, you have the final say." Zhang Xiaoyan was a little embarrassed by his sudden compliment. She raised her fist and scolded with a smile, "I know how to play tricks. Go back quickly, and continue to work hard at night." "Are you still working hard?" Lu Feng ran towards the front, stepping on the white snow and shouting, "I want to take a day off, can I?" "No, you didn't see that face of your grandparents, you're mad at me." The more Zhang Xiaoyan thought about it, the more angry she became, grabbing a handful of snow from the ground and smashing it towards Lu Feng. "Are you having a snowball fight with me?" Lu Feng squeezed a snow block the size of a sandbag from the side and threw it directly. Zhang Xiaoyan was in the middle, causing her to scream again and again. "You dare to hit me?" Zhang Xiaoyan casually hugged the snow on the ground and rushed towards Lu Feng. The frolic pierced the sky and spread far and wide. After 10 minutes, Zhang Xiaoyan was half wet, clutching her hat. Her hair was disheveled, and she could still see snow on her neck. Landing peak. "Why are you still angry?" Lu Feng stood under a tree not far away and said, "I'll punish myself, okay?" After he finished speaking, he kicked the tree. The snow on the tree covered him into a snowman. He patted the snow on his body. Only then did Lu Feng realize that she had been standing beside her, holding a heavy snow in her hand. Ball, with a smirk all over his face. Suddenly, Zhang Xiaoyan pulled away Lu Feng's clothes and stuffed the snowball into it, laughing and throwing it away. Lu Feng was squeaked by the cold feeling and chased after him. The moment when the snow is falling is particularly beautiful, as if everything has been forgotten, only happiness is left, but once some cracks exist, they will exist forever, and they will get bigger and bigger. On the 29th day of the new year, the uncle came with Yao Yao and Han Kaiang. This time, Han Kaiang seemed to be more low-key. Sitting on the sofa was very polite. The arrogance and domineering of this family seemed to be removed overnight. There were some fruits on the coffee table. Lu Wanke looked a little confused and said, "Brother, what do you mean? Just to buy some fruit on the way, is Lu Feng awake? It's almost 9 o'clock, how can you not wake up?" Lu Wanke knocked on Lu Feng's door and said, "Your uncle, sister Yao Yao and brother-in-law are here, come out quickly." Lu Feng was indeed a little surprised to see Han Kaiang again. He didn't expect him to leave, and what he didn't expect was that he actually started to dress in a low-key manner, wearing a slightly worn-out casual outfit. "Did you disturb your rest?" Han Kaiang hurriedly stood up, hunched slightly, his face full of apology. "It's all right, sit down." "What do you mean?" Lu Feng was a little confused when he saw the situation. "Brother Lu Feng, my sister didn't beg you for anything. I came here today to beg you for something." Yao Yao glanced at Han Kaiang beside her, then turned around and said, "Your brother-in-law doesn't have a serious job either. Son, I want you to make arrangements." "Isn't Han Kaiang the chairman?" Lu Wanke wondered. "Uncle, I'm a liar. Those are all fakes. Now that I have Yao Yao and a home, I've changed my mind and want to find a job in peace and stability." Han Kaiang changed his face bitterly. Hearing this, Lu Feng froze for a moment. He had heard of this kind of prodigal son's return, but if he turned around so quickly, there must be something wrong. After a little thought, he understood in his heart. "Where can I find a job?" Lu Feng sat down and asked, "You don't know GMA food very well. The layoffs are very severe. I don't know if I can stay here after the new year. Maybe I will go to work in a factory in the south." "Just go in." "Can I go in under your name?" "I don't mean anything else, I just think it's a little messy," Han Kaiang said. Lu Feng will not care about GMA foods anymore after the new year. He understands Lu Feng's thoughts very well. Don't worry, it's easy to get rich. But at the bottom, not many people in the factory know about Lu Feng. After the new year, Lu Feng's overall center of gravity is also moving to the south, so there is no need to pay too much attention to some things. If he uses the name Lu Feng, he can play these big businessmen, then he does have two brushes. After pondering for a while, Lu Feng said, "Okay, GMA food does a good job, and it can still make money, but it's just a little tired. When the time comes, I'll find you and go directly to the factory." Han Kaiang asked. "No, I may really quit after the new year." "You go directly to the recruitment department of the personnel department. After the new year, a large number of people will definitely be employed. People leave the factory every day, and people are hired every day." "There are many," Lu Feng said. "Do you know a leader or something? Take him with you, don't be too tired, it's better to take care of yourself," Yao Yao said. "I'm a team leader, and I can't manage a few people." "How is that possible?" Lu Feng declined. "But I heard people say that you are the leader there." "Okay, don't talk nonsense." Han Kaiang hurriedly interrupted Yao Yao's words. He knew very well that Lu Feng didn't want to be messed with by others, so he would go into the factory first. After being polite, he didn't leave dinner at noon, and left after 10 o'clock to see off the uncle's family. Lu Wanke was very happy, and his face was full of smiles. "I didn't expect to marry a chairman, and it's still a fake. According to this comparison, my son is the best." Lu Feng naturally understood Lu Wanke's careful thinking, but he could only sigh in his heart. It's strange that such a person who grew up in a family is not twisted. The next day, every household posted couplets, and the sound of firecrackers became more intense. For some reason, they started to crackle, perhaps simply because they were in a good mood. The people on the streets are all dressed up, with smiles on their faces. No matter how good or bad the year is over, and New Year's greetings are everywhere on TV. Time is like reincarnation, and this scene is always so familiar, but slightly different. In 1991, the year of the sheep, the New Year's Eve dinner was dumplings. When the Spring Festival Gala arrived as scheduled, The family sat there watching lively and lively. Lu Feng had mixed feelings when he watched these sketches, which he did not know how many times he had replayed. This year, it's not suitable to have children, it's not good for sheep, Lu Feng's mother muttered while sitting there. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 247. Hearing this, Zhang Xiaoyan leaned slightly beside Lu Feng and focused on the TV. As the midnight bell rang, the cannonballs that covered the sky and the moon forced people to feel the warmth of the spring festival. This year is fast and fast, slow and slow. Every day, children run around the world in groups of 3 or 5. Heavy snowfalls come one after another. The whole world is covered in silver. The feeling of being covered with snow all winter. He sometimes wondered about the smell of snow, but later thought it was urbanization, caused by snow plows. I had a birthday party a year ago. After the New Year, I didn't need to pay New Year's greetings. I slept for a few days. Lu Feng was too lazy to take care of some business relationships. Since Zhang Fengxia took over, she had to carry the burden. On the 7th day of the first lunar month, Lu Feng called Huang Youwei to say New Year's greetings. By the way, he told him that when he went to the meeting last year, he had already said everything he had to say. Then I made a few phone calls to the province, mainly some leaders, as well as the heads of several banks. Now Lu Feng can make a phone call to pay New Year's greetings, and he is definitely a person with a face. GMA Food officially resumed work on the 7th day of the first lunar month. Du Kefeng has handed over all the work in Zhengzhou to the factory manager there, and has gone to the capital. The Zhengzhou factory will serve as the core large-scale factory of GMA Food, and transfer the power of some core departments to the capital. The first batch of people has already settled in the office building, more than 100 people. After the 10th day of the new year, Mr. Li will also go to Beijing. The financial headquarters of more than a dozen factories will be formed to connect the finance of 13 subordinate factories. The top management of Dachengzi has been appointed and removed, and the head ability has been initially formed. A group of people left a few years ago, but it brought convenience to the group. The interest relationship between the personnel and organizations is relatively weak, and the new management comes up to facilitate management. Otherwise, the group will damage a large part of the factory management's rights. It's easy to get into a fight against one another. As the saying goes, it is not a blessing to know that Sai Weng loses his horse. On the 10th day of the first lunar month, Lu Feng told Lu Wanke and his wife that they were transferred to the south by the company. He also told them that they don't have to worry about money, that they can live in peace and stability. Lu Feng's meaning is very clear: since I inherited this body, I will definitely guarantee that these two will be stable until old age. On the 10th day of the first day, when he returned to the city, Zhang Xiaoyan wanted to pack up and was stopped by Lu Feng. There was everything there. Why bother to pack up? The original plan was to go directly to the south after the 15th day of the first lunar month. Lu Feng also began to learn about the situation there through Zhang Fengxia. The factory has recruited more than 6,000 ordinary workers, and 5 new design plans have been made. Sales channels are being developed. This year, it will cover the whole of Jiangsu and spread to the Yangtze River Delta. As the highway conditions in the south are stronger than those in the north, Zhang Fengxia expects to set up a dense sales network within 2 years. After listening to Zhang Fengxia's sales network, Lu Feng did not comment. He just told her that he would have a meeting after he went there. Zhang Fengxia also heard it, and they did not approve it, but they did not agree with this method. When Lu Feng was at home, he made a simple statistic about the TV sales model, the current road conditions across the country, transportation costs, and the purchasing power of each province. After the 15th day, I bought a plane ticket, and the family was just about to leave when Gao Jiwei called and messed up all the itinerary. Actually, I didn't plan to let you go. We attended a few dinners recently and wanted to contact some banks or something, but no one liked us. Yesterday, Mr. Do had a fight with Mr. What at a dinner party. The circles on the side are so powerful, we can't hold back. Gao Jiwei's voice was a little embarrassing. I'm used to working in this 18th tier small city, where GMA food is a giant, but when I go there, it's just a little shrimp, and other people treat them differently. If it's just for office, it's the same everywhere. The key is to be in the circle. If you can't get in, it's better to go back to your hometown. The embarrassing thing that Du Kefeng and Gao Jiwei have encountered now is that no one is bothering them. Gao Jiwei hoped that Lu Feng would come and help open the door. Even if he was scolding people, Lu Feng would dare to scold him, but a few of them really can't do it. Listening to Gao Jiwei's words on the phone, Lu Feng sighed. This person is okay in his business, but he is really not good at forging ahead. After thinking about it, he can only agree. After all, he is still the single largest shareholder of GMA Foods. On the 17th of the first lunar month, a flight to the capital took off. This was the first time for Lu Feng to enter Beijing. He knew that there were various factions in the major business circles in the country. Township and village enterprises are also closely linked with state-owned enterprises, among which there are many future bigwigs in the Beijing circle. There is a circle called Zhongguancun. When the plane landed, the airport here is very stylish. It is not much bigger than the airport when it took off, and there are passengers from all over the world. Looking around curiously, Zhang Xiaoyan said, I used to come here by bus, when I was young. There have been great changes in the past few years. You can climb the Great Wall or something, Lu Feng said casually. I'm not going, I've been, and the bear people are all people. The two of them were talking. When they walked out of the airport, they looked around at people. Many people at the pickup area held signs. After looking around, Lu Feng saw a sign that read a warm welcome to GMA Foods, Mr. Lu, to inspect the group headquarters. Lu Feng stepped forward and saw both Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng coming, and asked, Are you two so busy now? Do you need two people to pick me up? No, it just happens to be free today. The headquarters already has a functional role, and the number of people in the office has reached more than 150. Mr. Lu will get in the car first. Gao Jiwei briefly explained the situation and walked towards a commercial vehicle. There are countless high-rise buildings along the way. 30% of the country's high-rise buildings are now concentrated here, and the rest are in coastal areas. Many provincial capital cities do not have a building over 30 stories high. Duo was lying in front of the car window and looked at everything here, his eyes widened. Gao Jiwei told Lu Feng about the current situation. The two of them couldn't open up the situation here. Call them, there are even some second-hand dealers who call and sell tickets. The banks here are basically bank headquarters. The presidents here are not much more senior than the original President Ma, and the loans they negotiate are not comparable to them. Although GMA Food is somewhat famous, it is not enough here. I just hope that Lu Feng will come and open up the situation. The headquarters office building is located on the 3rd Ring Road. It is relatively remote and cheap now. Lu Feng went to the headquarters for a walk, and then went to the 5-star hotel that Johnny Du had ordered in Zidane. Zhang Xiaoyan took Duo to watch TV, while Lu Feng went straight to the living room, and as soon as he sat down, he said straight to the point, I didn't want to come, there are still a lot of things in Jiangsu, and I said it a few years ago, the board of directors will elect a suitable general manager, we don't look at any planning or management, we only look at the reports. Mr. Lu, isn't the headquarters here to integrate into the circle? It is convenient for all kinds of news and capital exchanges. We are a bit famous in the circle of professional managers, but not in the entrepreneurial circle. Yes, it's okay to take your time, but you need to pay for it. You can pay for the hard work this time. GMA Foods invited you to come. Du Kefeng nodded, happy for his wit. Lu Feng raised his foot and kicked him and said, "Take me as a prop man. You don't know how hot you are in this circle now." How hot, Lu Feng really didn't know. After a year, he just ate and slept, and ate, and the rest of the time was wasted by Zhang Xiaoyan. Xiao Anfan has scolded you from the south to the north. Anfan's high-end TVs are now full of advertisements in big cities, the subways are full, and there are bus stop signs. Gao Jiwei exaggerated, if he leaves you now, can't speak. Lu Feng was a little speechless after listening to the two of them. He originally spent more than 2 million yuan for advertisements in the south, but Xiao Anfan wanted to get his popularity, but now he started to advertise, but he became his own. Now not only in the electronics industry, but also in the IT industry, you are also very famous. Tomorrow, the 4th Industrial Innovation Conference of the High-Tech Industrial Park will have a small party ahead of time to invite you. Du Kefeng smiled and pulled out an invitation from behind. Letter. Lu Feng was stunned for a moment when he saw the invitation letter he had prepared, before he reacted, and said solemnly, "You two are cheating on me. Don't dare, it's just a kind of well-intentioned deception for the company. You can't really ignore Mr. Lu in your 2 days. This kind of party is full of bigwigs, and it takes a genius like you to take action. You can hold on, right, Mr. Gao?" Du Kefeng said with a wink. "Yes, mainly because we are not as handsome as you." Okay, Lu Feng stopped the two of them from flattering. Obviously, the two of them used themselves as a gimmick to integrate into various circles, which is a good way. In the afternoon, Lu Feng took a rest in the hotel. In the evening, he went directly to the Zidane shopping store through the hotel elevator. All kinds of high consumption are available here. The decoration here is resplendent, the lighting and decoration are basically the same after 30 years, and the dresses of various sales staff are also very fashionable and decent, making people forget what year it is today. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 248. From the hotel to the shopping city through the underground garage, there are countless luxury cars in it, and the words money and power are vividly reflected in this small place. Throw a brick into the crowd, and the people you hit may not be ordinary people. The lights here are bright, people come and go in fashionable clothes, everyone has makeup on their faces, all kinds of luxury bags in their hands, and the words they hear are all in Mandarin. Lu Feng found a Western restaurant. The minimum consumption was 888 yuan, the cheapest Weijia beef was 88 yuan, and the slightly higher grade was more than 200 yuan. This is a month's salary for an ordinary worker. I ordered a few dishes at random, and the 1,500 yuan was gone. Sitting on a chair, Duo said in a low voice, "Dad, how about we live here? I came here and wanted to eat roast duck, but it was very expensive, so I didn't eat it. I walked around Wangfujing Street. I didn't expect it to be so good." Zhang Xiaoyan involuntarily changed her words from dialect to Mandarin. "Still. Don't speak the dialect, if someone hears it, they will say we are native turtles." Lu Feng couldn't help laughing when he saw her mother-in-law like this. He looked around and finally understood what the country had developed in the past 30 years, that is, the promotion of Zidane in the 1990s to all parts of the country, even in the south. It was only built after a few years, and the luxury level has caught up. When the steak came up, Duo looked at the knife and fork in front of him and was in a hurry. Lu Feng greeted the waiter and asked her to take it down to help cut it and eat it with chopsticks. The few girls around eating quietly laughed. "We have a rural household registration. We can rent a house, but buying a house is enough." Lu Feng looked at Duo and said, "You are not even a citizen, so you still want to go to school here? Have the children's school greeted you over there?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked. "Haven't you heard a word?" Lu Feng said. "What?" Zhang Xiaoyan asked curiously. I'm from Shenzhen. Now this sentence is particularly popular, attracting every restless soul, gathering here from all over the world. Some people succeed in starting a business, and some people fail. The capital is very big and contains people of all levels. The headquarters of large state-owned enterprises are basically here, and the relationship is complicated. The reason why Lu Feng doesn't come here is because he sometimes can't handle the network here. As a human being, Lu Feng still believes that it is a very good place to set up a headquarters here, but it is absolutely impossible for a person to be like a duck to water here. Here, no matter how rich you are still a grandson, and many times you don't even have the chance to be a grandson. The Zhongguancun High-Tech Park contains a lot of innovative companies, ranging from it to electronics and internet companies. However, tonight, these top talents in the country are basically talking about Lu Feng. Gao Jiwei had let out the wind and told everyone that Lu Feng had come, and by the way helped him pull a wave of hatred, saying that Lu Feng would single out the entire Zhongguancun. At the electronic industry conference in the south, Lu Feng's technology, industry, and trade spread far and wide. When many people couldn't argue, they used his set of words, which always left people speechless. However, the current industrial park has been arguing about this matter, but there is one company that is firmly engaged in trade and industry technology, and has formed a group. This company is Lenovo. There are many software companies in the industrial park, including software companies such as Founder, Jinshan, Stone, etc., and even some companies have begun to explore the internet. In a year or two, the internet will spring up like mushrooms after a rain, and there will be countless yellow pages. People in the industry are quite controversial about the arrival of Lu Feng, especially the battle between him and Jiao Anfan. Some people think that he has a strong hand and eyes, and he still kills him under heavy siege. Worship is endless, but more people are dismissive of this hairy boy. There is a row of small restaurants outside the Science and Technology Park. These people may quarrel with the people at the next table when they are chatting, which is also very lively. Early the next morning, a newspaper called Science and Technology Daily published an article titled "Focus on High-Tech Zone Technology Conference, Industry Disruptors Are Coming." The whole report can be regarded as a bit of effort, talking about Lu Feng's establishment of GMA Food, annexing the small workshop industry in the north, changing industry rules, implementing low-price strategies to plunder the market, and at the same time being able to shake hands with Wahaha to make peace with each other. Matter. The evening is the time for a group of big bosses to get together. It is considered to be a breath of air before the conference. As a private communication, this kind of gathering is generally only invited by people from the inner circle. However, some people can't wait for the night. At noon, Lu Feng received more than a dozen people who wanted to invite him to dinner. Among them, there were many speculators who wanted to take advantage of the situation to make big news. Lu Feng originally wanted to dismiss them all, but when he heard one person, he was a little surprised and asked, "Who?" "Please Bajun," Gao Jiwei said. "He also brought a very good student." Lu Feng frowned. "Yes, he said that a student who just graduated is very good." Gao Jiwei thought about it and said, "And Wu Ziajun, Bao Yueming, and so on." Lu Feng was slightly taken aback when he heard the names of these people. They are basically the #1 farmers in the country. These people are now considered demigods in the IT world of Zhongguancun. "I eat this meal, where is it?" Lu Feng asked. "Quanjude." Zhang Xiaoyan said several times last night that she didn't have roast duck in the last time she came to the capital. Today, she simply brought her. At 11 o'clock at noon, she arrived downstairs in Quanjude and went upstairs. There were already 4 or 5 people sitting in the private room. One of them looked green. He looked 23 or 4, with long hair and a handsome face. When Lu Feng saw him, a smile appeared on his face, and he thought to himself that it was him, sitting next to him, a chubby man in his 30s. When he saw someone pushing the door in, he stood up on Lu Feng. Sizing up. "Are you President Lu?" He couldn't believe it. "Yes, my surname is Lu." "You invited me to dinner, don't you know me?" Lu Feng smiled and stretched out his hand. "The founder of GMA Food and GFeng Electronic Technology, Lu Feng." "Hello, hello, Code Farmer Begging Bajun. Code Farmer Wu Ziajun. Code Farmer Bao Yueming. Hello, my name is Lei Jun." The young student stood up and introduced himself cautiously. "Mr. Lu, please take a seat." Lu Feng asked Zhang Xiaoyan to take Duo to sit next to him, but he sat down next to Lei Jun and said, "I'm sorry, I'm no longer there, I brought my wife and children to eat." "It doesn't matter, how old is Mr. Lu this year?" Chiu Bajun asked. "I am 25 this year." 25. The faces of the people present were shocked. At the age of 25, their worth exceeded 100 million yuan, and it may even exceed hundreds of millions of yuan, which made everyone present feel the pressure. "I'm 1 year younger than you." Lei Jun looked at Lu Feng with disbelief in his eyes. "It's alright, work hard and you will get the money." Lu Feng patted him on the shoulder and encouraged. "Mr. Lu, I invited you here today because I want to chat with you. Although you are engaged in food and I am engaged in it, it can be seen from your series of methods that you are not limited to one industry." "Have you read the article in the daily newspaper?" Wu Ziajun asked while holding the gold wire glasses. "Look, I think I'm overrated and have high expectations. Of course, I will definitely bring some changes to the electronics industry." Lu Feng rolled up a roll of roast duck and handed it to Duo next to him. "Many people in the science park are arguing about whether you have won the electronics factory. Many people have estimated that the money in your hand is not enough to buy the electronics factory. You should hold more than 51%. Lu Feng laughed when he heard this speculation. "Then what? I made money and distributed dividends to a group of shareholders. Why can't I buy it with debt first, hold the ownership in my own hands, and then mortgage it to the bank? The interest is fixed, but the industry makes huge profits, and I do already own 100% of the electronics factory. Only TVs will be produced in the future? Will it enter the computer motherboard industry? Who are you asking this for?" Lu Feng looked at Bao Yueming and asked with a smile. "Of course, I'm just curious. Recently, the small restaurants outside the entire innovation park are discussing this, and there are all kinds of guesses. Let's take the first step. At present, we only do color TVs, and we do not rule out the development of other industries. The next few years will be a blowout period for color TVs. I estimate the market size to be 15 million to 20 million units. This scale will last for about 2 or 3 years." Lu Feng took a bite of the roast duck. When the people present heard this, they looked at each other in dismay. They couldn't understand why Lu Feng was so accurate in estimating the size of the color TV market. Not to mention him, even the State Department dared not say such data. Lei Jun sat there and looked at the man beside him. He knew very well about Chiu Bajun. This is the god in the industry and the first brother in the coding world. "Mr. Lu, can I ask you something?" Lei Jun asked. "Say. How much money do you have?" As soon as these words came out, everyone present was a little embarrassed. Where did they ask such a question? They all winked at him. "It's okay, I have less than 150,000 in my personal account, and I still owe the bank 200 million, Lu Feng looked at him and said, "This is my worth." "Then you owe so much money, the electronics factory hasn't started running, and the product hasn't been produced yet. Onfan's high-end TVs are already on sale. Can you win?" Hearing this, Lu Feng put down the roast duck roll in his hand. His eyes were a bit sharp. He looked at him and said, "Jiao Onfan? The ants are not worthy of being compared with Kunpeng." High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 249. Lu Feng's words are not insane. Now Unfan's high-end TVs are blooming everywhere in major cities, and the price is as high as 8,999 yuan, but the monthly sales have exceeded 3,000 units, which is a very good start. And now GFN Electronics has not even seen a product. Mr. Lu didn't agree with Mr. Jiao's high-end line before, but now the sales volume is quite good. This is similar to the software we wrote. For example, for the software we wrote, buying a set is now more than 3,000. It's a sky-high price, but some things are destined to be niche. Television is not a niche thing, it can only be used by the public. There are two kinds of people in this world. One is to rely on the existing market to increase unit prices, thereby increasing profits, and the other is to expand the market. Please be sure to believe, tomorrow will be stronger than today, and the people of tomorrow will be richer than today. Lu Feng looked at the people present. They were all pioneers. When 99.9% of the people in the country didn't know what the internet was, they had already started to write code. If something can't move from the niche to the mass, then it must be met with death. This is the case in any industry. I can assert here that color TVs will be a must-have electrical appliance in every household, just like the current sewing machines, 28 cars. In the same way, even computers and the internet are no longer mysterious and enter thousands of households. Lu Feng said solemnly, we must firmly believe that one day our life will surpass the other side of the ocean, and this day will not be long. Lu Feng's forward-looking remarks were a little shocking to the people present. These people present knew what the developed countries are like now. If the domestic population reaches the level of developed countries, then the consumption power will spawn a large number of crazy people. Enterprise. Once the expensive things are scaled up, they are all cabbage prices. What is GFN Electronics going to do? We want to make the first color TV set for young people when they get married, and we want to invade the countryside and towns, first to destroy the assembled TV sets, and then we need to industrialize, scale, and cooperate with each other. Panda fights, Skyworth fights, Changhong fights, first beat these state-owned enterprises one by one, and then beat them at low prices. TVs are too expensive now, Lu Feng said seriously. The people in the private room were silent, and everyone present was staring at Lu Feng like a lunatic. Is he going to beat up TV manufacturers across the country one by one? This is definitely not something ordinary people dare to say. The main body of the entire society is still state-owned enterprises. As for the price of TV sets, on the one hand, it is subject to raw materials and manufacturing processes, and on the other hand, it is because they are unwilling to reduce prices. The current market is very delicate. Food stamps, cloth stamps, etc. have been cancelled, but the lifeblood of the market is in the hands of state-owned enterprises. These people are unwilling to compete in the market. The cheapest TV is more than 5,000 yuan, 6,000 yuan. I only heard that Director General Lu was eclectic before. Listening to your speech today is truly eye-opening. There have been a lot of discussions about you in the past 2 days. They all said that you can't make waves. I used to think so, but now I really agree with the article in the Science and Technology Daily. Here comes the disruptor. Qiu Bajun looked at Lu Feng and said with admiration. Lei Jun, who was beside him, slapped his lips, and seemed to be impressed by Lu Feng's generosity. Lu Feng laughed when he heard his accent, patted him on the shoulder and said, just do it if you don't agree with your life or death. Remember, friends and businessmen are stupid. The meal lasted until after 3 in the afternoon. We talked a lot about the internet and the IT industry. Lu Feng knew that these people did not stand on the top of the internet. Instead, it was Lei Jun who founded Xiaomi. Lu Feng left the hotel, and when he went back to rest, he should prepare for tonight's dinner. I heard from CuteChildren that there are hundreds of people tonight, all of them are some of the best in the circle, and there are many banks and investment funds. Principal. Back at the hotel, Zhang Xiaoyan turned on the TV to watch cartoons for Duo, and said, "Don't be too straight sometimes, it's easy to offend people. The last thing I'm afraid of is to offend people. If he asks you for something, he won't dare to say anything if he offends him again. If it has nothing to do with his interests, he will offend him." Lu Feng lay on the bed and looked at the depressing sky outside and said, "It's not easy to come here." Lu Feng is still looking forward to tonight's dinner, especially after seeing people like CuteChildren and Lei Jun. He also knows that this place is full of talents, and now Lu Feng lacks talents the most. Although Zhang Fengxia is a returnee from overseas, she has been with Lu Feng for a year, and she has been doing things very neatly recently, but it is impossible for her to manage such a large company by herself. Lu Feng also needs a managerial talent, and he is more enterprising and hard-working in the market. Originally, he wanted to pull Lei Jun over, but he was still young, and he mainly played programming. Tonight's dinner was destined to be a battle of words. Lu Feng did not let Zhang Xiaoyan go. It was almost 6 o'clock in the evening, and the sky had completely darkened. Although the spring had just begun, the coldness in the air had nothing to do with spring. The hotel was set at the China World Trade Center Hotel. When I went downstairs, there were 3 black BMWs parked downstairs. Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng were both there. The person next to them opened the door and Lu Feng sat in. Gao Jiwei sat on the other side, got in the car and asked, "Mr. Lu, what did we talk about at noon?" "Internet, it?" "What is the internet?" Du Kefeng, who was sitting in the co-pilot, said with a confused expression. Lu Feng wanted to explain it to him, but after thinking about it, he felt that the explanation was unclear, so he said, "It has nothing to do with you. Have you ever been in contact with people from Lenovo?" "The people from Lenovo have been in contact, but the level is not high." Lu Feng nodded slightly and asked, "Is there General Manager Zhu Lidong now?" "Ah. Yes, yes." Gao Jiwei pondered for a while and nodded again and again, "It's called this name. I heard that this person has 2 brushes." Lu Feng still knows Zhu Lidong quite well. This person served as the general manager after Lenovo's conglomeration, and successfully turned the company from OEM to independent production. Lenovo's brand is now established, and it is particularly fierce in expanding the market. After a whole afternoon of reminiscing, I remembered such a person, but now it is really difficult to poach people, and it is easy to offend President Lu. The most important thing is that Lenovo is the pioneer in the electronics company, and the computer is higher than the TV, and it is compelling. Du Kefeng and Gao Jiwei looked at Lu Feng sitting alone and muttered, and they exchanged glances. "Who is he counting on?" "How do I know? I didn't want to come at first. Now it looks like I came prepared. Why are you eyeing Lenovo again?" The car stopped at the door of the hotel, only then did Lu Feng come back to his senses. The door opened, and after getting off the car, the lights were bright and bustling. Professional security personnel were hired for this dinner today. The man with the headset came over. "Please come this way." "Report, Mr. Lu from GMA Foods is here, do a good job in the reception. At present, there are many people downstairs, so pay attention to security work." Lu Feng stepped into the lobby, sighing inwardly, "It has to be here." These people escorted Lu Feng and several people to the elevator all the way. "This is eye-opening, this is pompous," Gao Jiwei said excitedly in the elevator. "It is indeed the first time to enjoy this kind of treatment. Is this the case in the capital?" Du Kefeng asked curiously. "There is a special security company. It's just a face. As long as you spend money, there are even more exaggerated pomp. This is a bunch of businessmen, what do you think?" Lu Feng said angrily, "Even if a few die, at most a few days of headlines, Can the business world collapse? I just feel like I'm a turtle, Gao Jiwei muttered. Don't look like you haven't seen the world. After Lu Feng finished speaking, he opened the elevator door and walked out. The ceiling of the banquet hall is very high, the lights are layer by layer, like auspicious clouds in the sky, the floor is covered with a light blue carpet, and there are several hostesses standing at the door, shirtless, with a standard smile on their faces, not far away. There are business areas, leisure areas, and buffet areas, which are very spacious. Everything here is full of jewels, including the white teeth that the hostess shows when she smiles. GMA Food and GFN Electronic Technology, 3, Gao Jiwei handed out the invitation. Welcome, Mr. Lu's arrival is our honor. The two little girls bowed slightly and stretched out their white arms. Lu Feng looked at the evening dress he was holding, and was also curious, wouldn't the clothes fall off? After staring at it for a while, he stepped inside. It was originally a small detail, but everything fell into the eyes of a man in his 40s not far away. This man is Lu Xiaojian. He is a supplier of high-end TVs for Onfan, but he is not very stable. One idea is to find fault with Lu Feng, scold him, and make a smile in front of Jiao Onfan. Mr. Lu is a little ruffian at such a young age. He can't stop staring at other girls, Lu Xiaojian said, stepping forward to block Lu Feng's path. Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng followed behind and discussed in a low voice. Tonight, learn more about how Mr. Lu communicates with people and how to talk. They will not care about it in the future. What is needed for such a big occasion is a dignified atmosphere, someone who can hold the scene. People are very technical in their speech. Lu Feng glanced at the man, didn't know him, and said, "Get out of the way. Mr. Lu will be more calm when meeting this kind of troublemaker." Yes, it depends on how elegant people solve the problem on such a big occasion. Lu Xiaojian sneered with a glass of wine. What? It's broken by me, and I can't hang on my face. Lu Feng stared at him and shouted, "Go to Nima, go to the side of death." Gao Jiwei. Johnny 2. High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list. Return to 1990. Author, Guanwei 11 Feng. Chapter 250. Lu Xiaojian never expected that in such a high-end place, Lu Feng directly yelled and cursed. Lu Feng has seen a lot of people who stand at the door waiting to be scolded. He has offended a lot of people, and there are countless people who do him bad things in secret. What's the matter? What's wrong with scolding you? What are you doing at the door of such a big banquet hall? What does I care about when you look at beautiful women? Other girls are not happy, so what are you beeping? Lu Feng reprimanded. This is your mother, your wife? Or your daughter? You. Lu Xiaojian's chest hurt. What are you? Look at your shabby look. You don't look like a person in mink, like a humming dog. There is a heater in this place, and you stand at the door with such a thing, pretending to be a bear. Why are you so poisonous at such a young age? You don't deserve to be standing here. Lu Xiaojian's face turned pale, his teeth were clenched, and he felt like he was about to pull away. I can go to Nima. When did Lao Tzu say that I have quality, and even if I don't have quality, I'm better than a dog like you? I'm standing at the door waiting to find fault. What do you want to do? I'm born like a dog slave, you will only wag your tail and beg for pity, bark. Do you know the virtue of being outside? Lu Xiaojian gasped heavily, and Lu Feng used his fingers as if he was going to eat people. Sir! Sir! Call the reserve medical team. The girls in charge of reception at the door were in a mess, and a man who looked like a manager rushed over. In less than half a minute, a stretcher had arrived, and Lu Xiaojian was carried out. Not far away is the business district. A group of people are a little dumbfounded when they look at the situation here. This is too much. Just walked in and scolded one to death? Lu Feng walked forward with a dark face, his whole body was full of aura, I am not easy to mess with. If anyone wants to run against me inside and out, don't blame me for humming your ancestors. The dismounting that just entered the door really surprised many young talents. Many of the people present were about the same age as Lu Feng. Most of them graduated from famous schools or returned from overseas. They had their pride. However, Lu Feng did not know which county the second bastard who came out grabbed the limelight, and was naturally unhappy. Some people said before that they should have a good chat with Lu Feng about electronics. From the history of electronics development to modern circuit materials, all they want to show off are the things they learned in their textbooks. However, after this scolding, a cold sweat broke out on the backs of the scolding group, thinking that if they were in Lu Xiaojian's position just now, I am afraid that they will be passed out like him. Meeting Lu Feng's kindness on such occasions also makes one's scalp tingle. Lu Feng walked all the way, and the eyes of the audience were all focused on him. Most of them were contemptuous. In fact, in the industry, Jiao Anfan scolded Lu Feng all the way to see that there are already a lot of these returnees. They have their own arrogance. They are very consistent in ridiculing Lu Feng, especially in the company and products they are all disdainful, thinking that GFN electronic technology is just a flash in the pan. With the chattering in his ears, Lu Feng went directly to the buffet area to get a plate, took the order and sat down, and a few people from Chiubajun not far away also arrived. He wanted to come over to say hello. But seeing Lu Feng's current situation, he didn't come. A few minutes later, the sound at the scene sounded, "Thank you, all the bosses, for taking the time out of your busy schedule to participate in the small gathering before this conference. Now everyone is basically there. You can speak freely about the next technological development of the industrial park today." The industry and commerce. Several presidents of the bank also arrived, as well as many heads of Hong Kong and overseas investment institutions, or representatives in the Greater China region. And don't scold people. Ha 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 ha. There was a burst of laughter at the scene, and all eyes were fixed on Lu Feng. Lu Feng looked around, the voices were noisy, and it was no different from those dinner parties in the city. The biggest difference was that he attended the dinner party in the city and was surrounded by people, but tonight, apart from Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng, Fang Yuan, no one is in 10 meters. After Lu Feng finished eating, he poured himself a glass of juice and sat down. Everything here is filled with circles and classes. Tonight, the people here are returnees, and graduates from colleges and universities are a circle. Big industries are their own circles. People are divided into 3, 6, 9, and so on. Faced with people who are 3, 6, 9, they have different facial expressions. Lu Feng sat for 10 minutes and everyone stepped forward. He doesn't do it. Go back to sleep. Lu Feng stood up and said. Mr. Lu. I didn't do anything. People would hide when they saw you. I'm not a god. I waved a magic wand at these people, and they all greeted me with a smile. Go in the direction of the door. If we can't get into the circle, we might as well go back to the provincial capital. If the price of entering the circle is inferior, I support you to return to the provincial capital, Lu Feng said. Everyone at the scene turned their heads and stared at Lu Feng, watching him leave. Without a word, they watched the person who did not belong to the circle leave. Sitting on a sofa in the business district was a man in his 40s, with a flat head, a lot of white hair, and a pair of sharp eyes. He picked up the microphone on the table and said, Mr. Lu, are you leaving? Why do you have to say hello to me? After all, I initiated the dinner tonight. Lu Feng stopped halfway through, turned around and glanced at no one, turned his head and continued towards the door. Mr. Lu, why are you still leaving? Why don't you give me face? The scene burst into laughter. A male waiter trotted over, stood in front of Lu Feng and said, Mr. Lu, Mr. Ho, please come over. I'm sorry for today's neglect. Excuse me, Lu Feng smiled sullenly. Although he was very upset, He also knew that if he could stay here, let GMA Food stay here as much as possible, and turned around and walked over. 4 leather sofas formed a half circle, and sitting right was a man in his 40s. Lu Feng didn't know him, but he knew the person next to him. It was President Lu of Lenovo. Next to President Lu was another man. Looks in his 30s, Lu Feng also knows him. His name is Zhu Lidong, now the general manager of Lenovo. Next to them were a few old men in their 50s and 60s, who seemed to be the presidents of ICBC, as well as a few foreigners. This group of people can be regarded as the core characters of the whole scene. Let's talk first. You can't scold people, the flat-headed man said with a slight smile. You can't scold me. Well, it seems that Mr. Ho is also an unqualified person. I do feel that your hospitality is quite unqualified. Lu Feng looked at him and said. Ha ha ha, I haven't been ridiculed like this in front of me for years. A township factory that has risen from a remote county and city has grown to this day all by plucking the country's wool. Mr. Ho looked at Lu Feng and lit a cigarette and said, look at those who are about your age, you should be honored tonight. Many of them are students who graduated from Tsinghua, Peking University, and world-class universities. I'm honored. Lu Feng reached out and picked up the microphone from the table, and said, Mr. Ho said that I should be honored to be with you guys tonight. What I want to tell you, please remember it deeply. Stay tonight, because in the near future it will be your honor to remember this night with me. As soon as these words came out, Lu Feng could hear someone scolding the street not far away. Originally, these people looked down on Lu Feng, and even looked down on a company like GMA Foods, which had grown up from a small place. As expected of a young man, crazy. It's not crazy. You haven't introduced yourself yet. What are you doing? Lu Feng asked. You don't know me, Mr. Ho smiled in surprise. You don't know me in the electronics industry. I don't know you, okay. Chairman of Waki Electronics. Lu Feng suddenly understood that President Lu represented a successful Lenovo, and this one represented a failed Lenovo. Now Waki Electronics is also very famous, and his organization is reasonable. Mr. Lu, the last few days everyone is talking about you, and the Science and Technology Daily has given you the title of an industry disruptor. I just want to ask you where the electronics industry will develop in the future. I hope you don't hide your clumsiness. I am very modest. I'm asking for advice, Mr. Ho said with a smile. Some of the people around laughed. This was playing Lu Feng as a monkey. If an industry boss tells you to ask for advice humbly, this is playing tricks. Gao Jiwei and Du Kefeng stood there with ugly faces, standing behind Lu Feng and whispered, Mr. Lu, let's go. Lu Feng ignored the two of them. Looking at these people, he didn't show his hand. They really felt like they were personalities, so he said, since you ask sincerely, I can't refute your face. The electronics industry is all-encompassing. From circuit boards to transistors and picture tubes, I will teach you the field of home appliances today. Mr. Ho was originally trying to make fun of fools, but he didn't expect Lu Feng to climb up the pole. There was even a lot of applause at the scene, but the applause was full of applause. No matter it was booing or what was going on, the scene had already revolved around Lu Feng, and he took the initiative. In Lu Feng's hands. If the victory is to integrate into the atmosphere of the scene and talk to the people present, then Lu Feng has already won. Zhu Lidong tilted his head slightly and whispered to President Lu, this young man is not easy. Phoenixes in remote places, do you think they are ordinary people? High-speed text handwriting returns to the 1989 chapter list.